And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Miss USA. I go from Dan Lombardo to Miss USA in one phrase. Oy gewollt. So again, I want to say thank you to our panel. I want to thank you to all of our experts to talking about trauma. And again, for all those that have research articles or reflections, I refer you to Dr. Gloria Bachman's journal, and we're going to be publishing that journal. And again, I want to thank Dr. Shah and Erin and Iris and Petros and Chris Purnell. And so it's my great honor to introduce someone who's very special. And I believe, Asia, you're with us? Hopefully she's with us. Thank you very much, panel. Thank you, Godspeed. And here she is, Asya Branch. And Asya just has her own incredible story of her family, and her father grappled with incarceration and the trauma that it brought upon to her family. And so with a real special, I just want to say thank you to Asya Branch, Miss USA. Asya, thank you for joining with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So Asya, can you, first, I mean, this sounds like a corny question. What is it like to be Miss USA? This is totally unprofessional. I'm sorry.
No worries. It's an experience unlike any other. It's a once in a lifetime experience and opportunity. And so it's been great. It has been wonderful. And I've enjoyed the spotlight and the opportunities presented before me. And I hope to be representing our nation well.
Oh, you have. And just like, I want to thank Esther of your team, and I want to thank our dear friend, Francine Lafrac from the Francine Lafrac Foundation for connecting us. You have a special tie to, reentry and the struggle of people coming home and the impact of families. And it was Van Jones and talked about again and again, this isn't just an impact on the person going behind the wall. This is an impact on the family. And as a spokesperson for goodness and decency and the platform that Miss USA grants you, could you share a little bit about your personal story and how this has impacted your life?
Absolutely. I like what you said, because I've always referred to it as a shared family sentence. Even though myself, my siblings, my mother weren't the ones behind bars, we still, suffered consequences from that. And we suffered tremendously, unfortunately. And, when it comes to it, the biggest struggle we faced was a financial burden, because my father was our main source of income. He held our family together, and losing that, we lost our home to foreclosure, and we didn't know whether our lights or our water would still be on. And it was just a lot of things that me at such a young age, I never saw happening. And so there I am in the middle of it. And I'm like, okay, how are we going to make this happen? How do we make this work? We don't have the means that we used to in order to live our lives. And so we struggle day by day. And I mean, it's still not easy now, but you find a way to make it work.
And so how old were you? And by the way, your father was a veteran, and he served our nation. And so we're really grateful for his service to the country and to the nation and to our armed forces. How old were you, if you mind me asking, when your father went away?
I was 10 turning 11.
And from the sense from our past conversation that you almost had to assist your mother and because your mother was working and you had to help raise your siblings.
Absolutely. Since my dad was the breadwinner of our family, my mom, she worked, but she didn't have to work. And so at this time, she had to go back to school, earn her master's degree in order to, teach full time and be able to provide for the last 4 of us kids that were still at home. And so I had to step up and become a second parent to my younger siblings and really kind of parent them to help her get by.
And how did you, what I love about your story is that you kept a relationship with your dad. Can you just talk about that? That's so special and meaningful.
Well, growing up, I was glued to his hip. Anything he was doing, I wanted to be right there doing it as well. And with him being taken out of my life so suddenly, that was a real struggle for me. It was very difficult. And so I remember the week that he had been arrested, I pulled out my notebook. I wrote him a letter with my favorite Bible verses. I had sprayed some of my perfume on it because I just wanted him to sense me and remember me. And I sent it to him. And that from then on out, we continued writing each other back and forth. And even sometimes he couldn't write me back, but I was still writing, keeping him updated on my day-to-day life, from athletics, academics, boys, everything. I made sure that he was still as much of a part of my life as he could be.
And how was that? I mean, we talk about, intergenerational, the impact of the criminal justice system, the impact of incarceration on children. I mean, what did that feel like? I mean, going to school, how did that change your perception of your family, your life? I mean, could you share with us those thoughts?
Yeah, it changed drastically. I went from being this super extroverted, outgoing person to being introverted because of how my peers were viewing me based off of, my father's incarceration, a circumstance completely out of my control. And, I began to have a new perspective on incarceration. And I had to realize that, so often it's a generational cycle, and I refuse to be anything but a statistic. And so I really worked hard every day just to kind of defy those odds and to not fall into this category that people had already sort of put me in.
Yeah, and did you realize that your father was a good man who had made a bad decision?
Yeah, I never once did I think he was a terrible person. And I think
that's so important. And it's so important, I mean, from the perspective of people in prison, to know that they're loved, and to know, one of the real frustrations for me is that, maybe the worst decision of his life defines him to so many others. And it's just important that people who love him, that Asia continues to love her father.
Yes, exactly. And I know, I didn't want him to feel abandoned. And obviously, through writing letters, I didn't feel abandoned. But unfortunately, that's not the case for so many young people. They don't have that relationship. They don't keep it. And it's really heartbreaking because you want that bond. You want something to look forward to, or to keep things positive, so to speak. And
so how was it when you went to prison to see your father? What was that like?
My very first visit was 3 years after he was arrested. And I was super nervous just because I'd never been in that situation before. I didn't know what to expect, but it was extremely emotional because, I was able to embrace him and see him for the first time in 3 years. And I didn't know when I came home from school.
So can you describe the setting for us? Was there, go ahead, I'm sorry.
You were in just this open gymnasium type setting. And, we just pulled chairs around, and he came walking in with a guard and sat down with us. And
did you hug him?
Yes, I did. I hugged him, and we were able to eat snacks and just hang out. And it felt normal.
So you were able to reestablish the relationship you always had with your father?
Absolutely.
And what was it like, and how long were you in that room for, if you mind me asking?
I believe it was 2 hours that we were there.
And then some guy comes up and somebody says, time?
Yeah, they just they come into, because there's other families in there as well. We're spread out amongst the gym.
Spread out all over the gym, and you're sitting on your chairs, and there's some kids, and a couple kids are running around, and then what happens? And I just want you to, so part of what I believe in terms of reentry, or in terms of, is that we have to normalize. We have Professor Craig Haney on talking about how we want people to have good values and good behaviors. But it's hard to, when we're seeing people, and I saw that when I worked with women, behind the wall for 3.5 years, they would see their kids for 2 hours every so often. And it was the most bloody, painful thing. I still get worked up seeing those kids hold on to their mother's leg and, whatever. So what went through your head the first time they said, all right, Asia, time up? What went through your mind?
you know, it was kind of like already, it's time already, like we have to go. And they you know, gathered us and had us exit and everything. And I was grateful, but I was also a little sad at the same time, because I was like, I'm grateful that I got to see him and spend some time with him, but I hate that it was such a short period of time. And who knows when I'll get to come back again. Because he was 4 or 5 hours away from where we lived. And, you know, you could only go every other weekend at certain times. And it's hard to make that happen when you've got a mother working and 4 kids in and out of school and extracurricular activities. And so, you know, we may see him once that year. We may see him 3 or 4 times. You just never know how it'll work out.
And how did it change, do you think, the story of your life, or how you understood him? Or how do you think it changed his story?
Just overall?
Yeah, like, I mean, how did it, like, so we're doing something now called narrative therapy, and we're asking people to say, all right, Jim, you know, write the story of your life. So Jim McGravy was born in 1957, Jersey City, New Jersey, went to grammar school, high school. And it's the first time, you know, that I was convicted of a crime, or the first time it was drugs, or the first time I had a child, and first time I was incarcerated. And then we're trying to ask people to understand their story, right? So whether Asia has a story, Jim has a story, we all have a story. And we're also asking people to write their obituary. So I'm writing maybe this is controversial, I'm writing my obituary if I were to die today. If I just came out of, you know, just coming out of prison or coming out of addiction treatment or jail. And then I'm going to write my obituary 25 years from now, so that I can change my life. I can change the story. And so part of, I mean, all these fancy psychologists, narrative therapy, but part of it is also understanding that, and we actually have, like, Asia will write a letter to Asia when she was 7 years of age. So you write a letter to the young Asia, and Asia at 7 writes a letter back, the things that you're hopeful for, the things you're afraid of. And so it's to look at our lives and our stories. I was just curious, in your story, how did your father in prison change your life or your narrative?
I think that for me, it was, it pushed me harder. You know, I learned from that experience. You know, I didn't want to become a statistic, and I wanted to still make my dreams a reality. I still wanted to power through and be that positive example for my younger siblings. Although it was hard to push through all of the negativity, all of the things that people would say about me or to me. And I just wanted, part of me was like, I still want to make my dad proud, because he was my biggest motivator, and he was always just in my corner. Like, I remember bringing home a report card in the 3rd grade, and it was like 100, 100, 199, 100. And he said, well, why isn't this a 100 as well? And
I tell that story to my younger daughter. But this is so great. I've got validation.
Yes. And so I just had that mentality of always doing better, always putting my best foot forward. And if that's not good enough, trying again and doing better the next time. And so I tried to keep that same mentality as I was progressing through life, quote, without him. I still wanted to make him proud as if he were still there. And so I feel like it pushed me even harder to overcome all of the hardships and the obstacles that I was facing at the time, to still make my dreams happen, and to still be successful, and to still have him be proud of me for all that I was able to accomplish.
That's incredible. And just, I mean, you shared within the beginning of it, I mean, the loss of your father's earning potential, how it impacted your family. I think it's important that we all understand that incarceration not only impacts the person, his or her story, his or her narrative, but also the family. And you were just bluntly were able to take away, God willing, healthy lessons. But there are a lot of young people that don't take away healthy lessons.
Absolutely. Far too often. I've spoken with children all across the board, and you know, they
all across America.
Yes. And they think just because that's the regular in their family. Their uncle has been to prison, their dad's been to prison, their brother's been to prison. They're just waiting on their turn. And you have to change that perspective and be the first to not follow in that line, and just really know that regardless of your circumstances, regardless of your background, what you have, what you don't have, wherever you come from, you don't have to be defined by your circumstances. You don't have to, fall in that same path.
But that's narrative therapy. I mean, at some point in time, and we shared this offline, is that the stories or the lessons or the values that your father, when you were like tied to his hip, I love that expression you shared about the branch. Could you just share that adage?
Oh, yes. My dad's always said branches bend, but they don't break. And
you didn't break.
I didn't. I have not broken. I've been bent as far as I could bend, but I never did break. And that's something that I've clung to it forever, because, it's so easy to be broken in this world today, and to just fall down the wrong path. And I think about where I could have been, and then I compare it to where I am. And it makes me feel very proud that I was able to overcome things and power through the even toughest of situations, just because I felt I had potential to do well in life.
You're strong. I mean, for me, and I'll just share, I would argue, going through a hard time and being broken. There's a great line that says, the cracks in the vase are where God's grace comes through. I mean, sometimes it's God bless you, but sometimes it's surrendering ego and for me, doing the next right thing or God's will in our life. But you obviously were raised and your relationship with your father. Can you just tell the story, which I found so moving? And your relationship with your father is really special. Can you talk about him coming home and you being in your car, picking him up?
Yes. Obviously from the day he was arrested, I looked forward to the day that he would come home. And he was incarcerated for 10 years. And so.
And where was he incarcerated, if I could?
Parchman.
And what state? Because.
Oh, the Mississippi State Penitentiary. It's been on the news many a times. So terrible environment. So imagine the stress I felt as this child, knowing that he was in that environment, and I had even toured the prison, and I was just heartbroken at the living conditions and how inhumane it was. And so I tried to not think about it, but it's really hard to. But anyway, so I remember driving to go pick him up in December of 2019, and I was sitting across.
And he had been in prison for 10 years at this point.
Yes, 10 years. And I was sitting in my car across the street from the entrance, and they were bringing the guys over that were being released that day. And I remember I was just holding onto my steering wheel, just watching the entrance, waiting, and I was just shaking. I was nervous, I was excited, and it was just a very emotional day. So he gets in my car and we drive home, and I take him to surprise my younger sisters who had no idea he was being released. And that was just a roller coaster of emotions altogether, because the last time they had seen him was 4 or 5 years prior. And so they had grown, and, he had aged a little bit. And so it was just a beautiful moment to be reconnected and to have us all there together at once again, and to have him present in our lives. We've had phone calls with him and written him letters, but that just doesn't compare to him being there in the flesh.
And being, Miss USA and being a national spokesperson and having this experience and talking to children around the country. Part of, God willing, what we're about is changing not only prison, but changing reentry, second chances. How does your father's, how does his experience, how does it affect you as Miss USA?
I guess I don't, what exactly do you mean?
Well, so it's obviously had an impact on your message.
Right.
And it's obviously had an impact on who you are that you speak so clearly and passionately and moving about. So just in terms of talking to people around the country or talking to children, I mean, it's as if, to a degree, and I don't want to overstate it, that your father, and that's had a profound impact on your sense of mission and purpose as Miss USA.
Absolutely. I began realizing the impact I could have on others probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I realized that, you know, there are millions of children that face the same circumstances or similar circumstances as myself. And I realized I had a positive way of getting through it, but that's not the case for everyone. You know, so many people, you know, they fall into the negativity of it all, and they're pulled into, whether it be just terrible circles of people or you know, peer pressure, different things that they experience, especially based on their region where they're located, you know, and what they're exposed to. And I realized, you know, I can make an impact in the lives of someone else by sharing my own story. It's different when someone comes into a classroom and they're telling you, oh, you have the potential to do anything and chase their dreams, when they've had a perfect life. But when someone comes in who's been in your shoes,
Amen,
and knows how difficult it is, then you sit up straight and you listen. You understand because you can.
yep.
And so I realized that I had that impact. And so I spent a lot of my time in low economic areas and with at-risk youth, just trying to be that inspiration or that just little bit of encouragement that they need, that they don't receive, because I hate to see young people, you know, in our detention centers and things, because they have the potential, but they don't have someone there to guide them, someone to help them through these hard circumstances, that understands what they're feeling and what they've been through, the things that they've had to see and experience at such a young age, that really messes with your development and the way that you process things, the way that
Yep. And we just talked about that with trauma, like what that triggers in your own head about, I must be a bad person. My father isn't here. My mother isn't here. Everybody looks at me differently because my parents are in prison. So God bless you for doing that. So 2 last questions. What would you say to all of the children whose parents are in prison, how they should feel and love their parents, and how should they love themselves? And then I have one last question.
Okay.
So the first question is, what would you say to all the children of incarcerated parents? What do you say to them?
I feel like everyone's situation is different, but you just have to know your worth, and you have to know that you're not to blame. I think that's one of the biggest issues, is children blame themselves for their parents going away, and you have that pressure and that feeling of defeat almost. So you can't feel defeated. You have to allow these hardship circumstances that you're facing to strengthen you for your future. I feel like we're not given anything that we can't handle. It may not be what we asked for. My favorite quote is, you can't control the cards you're dealt, but you can control how you choose to play your hand. And it's all about how you choose to play your hand. I didn't ask for half the cards that were dealt to me, but it's all about my reaction and my response to those. You know, did I choose to let them hinder me, or did I find a way to grow through them and learn from these experiences? And so that would be my message, is to control the way you play your hand, because it'll be a blessing in the end. But just don't allow these hardships to hinder you in your progress, your growth, and your development towards your future.
God bless you. And what's your father and your relationship like now?
Oh, it's perfect. I mean, luckily, you know, we had such a good relationship prior, and we kept that throughout his imprisonment. And now nothing has changed. It's almost as if he's still been here along this entire decade that we kind of missed. We played catch up a little bit, but our relationship is strong. It's good. If I'm confused about something, need some guidance, I call him. I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? How should I go about this? And he calls and checks on me every night before bed. Hey, how was your day?
My God.
And so we have a very strong relationship, which is truly a blessing. I know that I'm blessed because I know not everyone has that same situation.
Like you're incredible, and I'm sure you're busy being Miss USA and your term of service, and just sort of like wrapping up for the whole conference. What would you say to America about folks being behind the wall, families, reentry, second chances? And why this is so powerful is because here you were, young 10-year-old Asia, getting straight A's in school, and how it impacted you. But now you're talking to these children. What would you say to America about making us a better people, or a better country, a better place?
I think we're all, one action away from making a mistake. I feel like we shouldn't be so quick to pass judgment. I know for so long, I'd encountered people that think everyone behind bars is a monster and a true criminal. And I'm like, I've met so many of these people, and they're just like you and I. They just had a bad day, or they got caught up with the wrong group of people, and they didn't have the means to get themselves out of these situations. And so my message would, what I have to say is that everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves a fighting chance. And we have to stop passing so much judgment and really work to improve these prison conditions, and also work to improve our justice system so that people are truly given justice, because so often our system fails.
So thank you. What a perfect way to end. To Asya Branch, or Miss USA, I just want to say thank you, Asya. And I look forward also, we're going to have a special engagement with Asya and the women of NJRC coming up when we're appropriate COVID protocols. So I just want to say thank you to Asya. I want to thank Esther from your team, and of course, Francine Lafrac. Can we have a round of applause for Miss USA? Thank you,
so
Asya.
much.
God bless you. So I can't think of a better way to end the conference with Asya's words for second chances. And this has been a heck of a conference. When we start out with Cardinal Tobin and his invocation, and also Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver in terms of the work of DCA, Governor Christie and Reverend Al Sharpton having so many areas in common, and Craig Haney talking about incarceration and what that does psychologically and the trauma. And then I want to thank Alasia, Judge Arleo, Linda Baraka, and Myra, Shanice, Tony, Lakeisha, and Margarita for their testimony and for sharing. Congresswoman Dean talking about addiction and talking about her special legislation on mental health and on imprisonment, and also in terms of veterans. Van Jones, I think it was a clarion call for change and for our responsibility. My dear friend, Steffi Bartley, for a legislative delegation, for the speaker, Joe Cryan, Senator Cunningham, the great Larry Lusberg, my beloved friend Ileana Pinto-Marin, Nellie Poe, Troy Singleton, and the indomitable Senate President Steve Sweeney. I just want to say thank you. Chris Hedges for being a prophet of change. The community panel talking about trauma. I mean, I feel like I get a 3-credit course in psychology. I'm just thankful. And Asya Branch, I just want to say thank you to Asya, Miss USA 2020, for joining with us, who helped to understand that this becomes a societal and generational challenge. To all of you, I just want to say thank you and Godspeed as we enter the Easter season. We move from Pesach to Easter to Ramadan. It's a period of self-examination and transformation and new beginnings. April 28th, Wednesday, we open our new reentry training center, 9 classrooms, opportunity to receive industry recognized credentials. Reverend Bolivar had me say that word 3 times, those words, industry recognized credentials. So whether it's CDL or HVAC or electrical, we move people to pre-apprenticeship program. And to Keith Davis on Networking Academy for Cisco. So to each and every one of you, I want to say thank you. We're going to put all of the stuff from the presenters on our website. If anybody has any questions or concerns, please email me as always at jemcgreevy@njreentry, that's NJREentry.org. Thank you. Thanks. God bless.